Told you I like that girl. Our next speaker, Nature McGinn, is a marine biologist originally from Rhode Island who specialized in reproductive physiology and developmental biology of marine invertebrates. Nature is currently a 2012-2014 AAAS Energy, Environment, and Agriculture Fellow placed in the National Science Foundation's Division of Polar Programs. We stress often that this fellowship is not a job, but it is also not camp. Though you would not know this from the title of Nature's presentation, What I Did Last Austral Summer by Nature McGinn.
As a AAAS Science Policy Fellow in the National Science Foundation Division of Polar Programs, I traveled to Antarctica last austral summer, twice. Antarctica is dedicated to peaceful purposes and scientific pursuits by an international treaty that was signed in 1959. To familiarize myself with the U.S. Antarctic program, I visited all 3 U.S. stations, McMurdo, South Pole, and Palmer, where I spoke with scientists and support staff, toured facilities, and visited field research sites. I was also able to visit the nearby British and New Zealand bases while I was there. The main focus of my work at the National Science Foundation is international collaboration and cooperation. To better understand our current partnerships, I met with staff of other national Antarctic programs, both on the ice and in their home countries, and studied models of collaboration like the Dutch lab that was recently built on the British station Rothera. I took an 8-hour flight to McMurdo from New Zealand aboard an LC-130. The same kind of plane took me all the way to the South Pole for a quick visit. My sweet rides on continent included helicopters and Ivan the Terra bus. I even went on a few magic carpet rides when the conditions on the ice road got really bad. I flew to from Chile to the Antarctic Peninsula courtesy of the British Antarctic Survey. I also spent a week aboard the Lawrence M. Gould, a research vessel that brings personnel from Chile to Palmer Station. And with the focus of the research at Palmer Station being coastal and marine, zodiacs are actually the prime mode of transportation. To stay warm, I was given an extra small big red parka and a pair of bunny boots. And while they usually let me sleep in a dorm room, the first night I pitched a Scott tent and slept on the ice shelf to pass snow survival school, AKA Happy Camper. What did we eat? Food from the cold storage, which is relatively easy to come by in Antarctica, is cooked up into sometimes unusual but usually tasty meals, including a full Christmas dinner. And I believe I put on the Antarctica 15 by eating copious amounts of recently expired Cadbury dairy milk bars. On the McMurdo ice shelf, in sight of Mount Erebus, scientists launched long-duration balloons carrying telescopes into the upper atmosphere, while another team tested a sterile hot water drill that would eventually successfully reach the waters of a lake deep below a glacier on the other side of the Ross Sea. In the dry valleys, I went out with a team of scientists that sampled rocks to ground truth satellite imagery, while also documenting the landscape for Google Earth. I took a helo to hunt for sponges that had churned up from the ocean floor to the top of the ice shelf with scientists who were eager to study the microbial communities that were still living inside. At the South Pole, scientists are answering questions about the origins and nature of the universe. They drilled into the 2-mile-thick ice sheet and deployed thousands of DOMs to create IceCube, the world's largest neutrino detector, which is also an example of a successful US-European collaboration. The clean, dry, very transparent atmosphere, which is sampled regularly by NOAA scientists, together with the many months of 24-hour darkness, makes South Pole the perfect place for telescopes searching for cosmic microwave background radiation, which is evidence to support the Big Bang theory. The climate is warming more rapidly in the Antarctic Peninsula than anywhere else in the world. That fact has made the research by an interdisciplinary group of scientists in the Palmer Long-Term Ecological Research Program all the more important and relevant to our understanding of changes in the peninsula ecosystems. At Palmer Station and surrounding islands, U.S. and international scientists are studying the biology and ecology of plant and wildlife populations and monitoring them for responses to environmental change. And they don't let the weather or curious petrel parents keep them from doing their work. As a side project, I am making the case for upgrading our wastewater treatment at Palmer Station. To that end, I examined and documented the handling of wastewater at every facility that I visited, an odoriferous but enlightening experience. They ranged from a poo hole deep in the ice to a fully functioning sewage treatment plant. I learned much about the education and outreach potential of Antarctica from my colleague and travel buddy, Einstein Fellow Lynn Reed. The opportunities to teach people about the Antarctic range from restored historic huts to captive audiences aboard cruise ships. But sometimes there's nothing better than charismatic megafauna. And despite the fact that Antarctica appears on globes as a big white continent, there's plenty of color in the land and icescapes, just so long as you like blue and gray. And it seemed that when I'd just seen the most beautiful iceberg or glacier, there was always something more spectacular to see just around the corner. While penguins get most of the press, the wondrous and weird wildlife of Antarctica, from toothfish to giant sea spiders, are intriguing in their own right and just as deserving of our attention and protection. I suggest that you watch The Last Ocean, protect the Ross Sea, and don't eat Chilean sea bass. And even a dyed-in-the-wool invertebrate biologist like me was drawn in by the seals of Antarctica. There's really nothing quite so captivating as the large, dark eyes of an elephant or Weddell seal, just so long as you can get over the smell. As for my reactions to the seal mummies, it was kind of like, gross, cool, gross, cool. And of course, there were plenty of adorable penguins, though a penguin colony is much louder than you would expect. And they sometimes gave the sewage treatment plants a run for their smelly money. These birds usually just had me awing and snapping away like a regular tourist. And how cold was it? Well, in the tunnels, 50 feet below the South Pole, I spent an hour or so with Lynn walking to the poo hole, and it was at minus 55 degrees, and that is the coldest that I ever need to be. Thank you.